less of them in the building code. But the building code only applies in counties that have adopted the building code. And what county are you in?
Stearns.
They've adopted everything. Stearns even has a new rule that on rental boats, canoes, and paddleboards, they want you to put your phone number if you're a resort or outfitter or bait shop that rents boats. They probably have the authority to do it. The state law says that counties can enact watercraft ordinances that are more restrictive but not less restrictive than the state ordinance. So Stearns is one of those islands that has a heavy regulatory environment. And they have a fair number of resorts and campgrounds. All right, you may have followed the AIS sticker. We talked about it at this event last year. Up until the legislative session, we thought everyone who had a boat trailer that came through Minnesota was going to have to take a 5-minute course on the internet, pass a test, and get a sticker to put on their boat trailer. We were concerned because we were hearing at camping shows people that may be coming from other states or that may be infrequent boaters, that made them really nervous. We also didn't think it was effective because lots of boats don't go on trailers. They're car toppers or they go in the back of pickup trucks. It wouldn't affect canoes and other things that might pick up AIS. Other industries, other groups like the homeowners associations, county government were concerned about this requirement. So we hammered out a compromise that Bob Meyer mentioned at dinner last night, and it's called affirmation. Starting in January 1 of 16, when you register or re-register a watercraft in Minnesota, there will be a panel that comes up online, or if you do it on paper, it's a part of the application. Brief reminder of what the AIS mitigation rules are, and then a place for you to literally check a box saying, I read it, I understand, I'll comply. And if you're, that portion of the form will stay with you with your registration. That starts January 1, starting March 1. Our guests that apply for an out-of-state fishing license only, not in-state, but out-of-state, will have the same affirmation process. I got the AIS information, I understand it, I'll follow it. This does not affect in-state licenses, and we hope it will not. It is intended to do some of the good of alerting guests, but without the kind of regulatory burden of maybe non-digital guests being told they have to go to the internet or take a test or buy a sticker. It was going to cost $5, it's now free. DNR is going to absorb it out of other watercraft-related revenue. Any questions about that one? I think that was a good news item. Now, the regulatory thing we spent a ton of time on. In October of 2014, Governor Dayton went to a Pheasants Are Forever educational event and was convinced that that there just isn't enough pheasant habitat in Minnesota. And then he read a report saying that farm field runoff into rivers and streams is a major source of pollution, which it may be. And at a DNR constituent group meeting last December, and without consulting with the DNR or the PCA or the Board of Water and Soil Resources, he announced that he would be proposing a mandate for a 50-foot buffer strip along all public waters, lakes and rivers in the state of Minnesota. And it ignited a firestorm with farm groups principally, but I was concerned, and the other resort group was concerned as to how it would impact our members who have tens of thousands of square feet or a front foot of lakefront and some riverfront. We ended up with a kind of a walk-in to a 50-foot buffer, but it only applies to plowed agricultural fields. It does not apply to beaches or lawns. Now, if any of you have some of your property that you own that is riparian, that it is abuts a river or lake, is farmed, you're going to have a 50-foot buffer. Your local soil and water conservation district will be establishing local rules and local inspections. If, like most resorts and campgrounds, your lakefront is either beach or lawn, beach is a buffer, mowed lawn is a buffer. Now, weeds could be, there is a provision that says perennial leafy plants other than noxious weeds and grasses. So if you have natural prairie abutting your lake or river, there will be inspectors from soil and water. I was having a little trouble getting that one out. Conservation districts who may try to classify natural prairie as noxious weeds and grasses. I'm not sure we'll win that one, we might, but bent grass, fescue, regular lawn. I have them both, DNR and the Board of Water and Soil Resources testified in committee, and we have it, that a lawn is a vegetated buffer. So I think we have resorts and campgrounds with lakefront come out of this entirely, unless you have plowed fields. Now, if you have a big garden, please stop at 50 feet from the lake. Any questions about that? And the enforcing entity is a problem because water and soil resource boards don't have a lot to do, and they love having power and authority. And so I am concerned that I'll get calls about renegade water and soil boards. They don't have much to work with in the law to impact resorts because we clearly have buffers on our lakefront. Now, Jim, you have some undeveloped lakefront.
Yeah, not much.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean some, but not a lot.
Yeah, and if woods go down to the lake, I think we're fine. The concern is disturbed soils where you may be applying fertilizer, there may be farm animal waste. We're probably okay on this one. How many of you have liquor licenses? I know Jim does, you do. All right, we have a minor change. Up until this year, the state opening time for the service of alcohol was 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday and 10 a.m. on Sunday. Some members of the Minnesota Restaurant Association and the Minnesota Lodging Association that have Sunday brunch or serve breakfast on Sundays or had events on Sunday wanted to be able to serve a Bloody Mary or a mimosa or whatever guests wanted at a consistent time all week. So we were able to pass a bill, it got affectionately called the Bloody Mary bill, that made the 8 a.m. start time for service consistent statewide, all week. You don't have to. If you don't want to serve at any time, you can, or don't want to open your bar, you're not required to. But if you choose to serve alcohol to those who are old enough to consume it, you can now do it at 8 a.m. on Sunday. All right. Yeah, we have had an epidemic of miscellaneous, what are called barrier removal lawsuits under Title II and Title III of the Americans with Disability Act. There were 120 of them as of last week. They're almost all filed by one lawyer, a man by the name of Paul Hansmeier. You notice I didn't refer to him as a gentleman named Paul Hansmeier. They are intended to extort legal settlements from victim businesses, in my opinion. We are working with the Minnesota trial lawyers and others to insert a provision in Minnesota law that would require a period of cure, a time to fix it before they can file a lawsuit. Representative Poe from Texas introduced a bill in the U.S. House last week to do the same thing on the federal level. These will take some time if we can do it. I would urge you to talk to your insurance, particularly if you have bars, restaurants, retail. They have not attacked lodging properties yet, but they could. There is another law firm that has filed some pool lift lawsuits, but they lost most of them, so I think that may have gone away. But the Hansmeier lawsuits have been heavy on restaurants and retail. You can buy an insurance coverage. It's called Employment Practices Liability Insurance, EPLI. And you need to buy what's called third-party coverage. Regular EPLI only covers disputes between you and an employee or a customer. EPLI third party would cover what Mr. Hansmeier is doing. He's created a club, essentially, of people with disabilities, and they get a piece of the action if he gets settlements from businesses. It is legalized extortion. We're hoping to change the law, but kind of a word to the wise. Of the 120 suits filed so far, I probably have 18, I believe I have 18 that are members of one of our associations. All right, I'm going to pass out a handout. This has